Welcome to the Rochelle Christian Podcast, formerly the Emotional Mastery Podcast. I'm Rochelle, your host. I'm here to help you come back to your body, take charge of your emotions, and live life on your terms. This podcast is a space for raw, real conversations about what it means to trust yourself, lean into your power, and create a life that feels aligned and alive. We'll explore human design, astrology, and other tools to help you understand your unique energy. More importantly, though, we're going to talk about what it means to actually live and embody these aspects. So each week, I'm going to share stories, lessons, guidance to help you navigate life's challenges and really own your magic. So if you're ready to step up, take control, and show up as the most authentic version of you, let's begin. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm so used to introducing it as Emotional Mastery, but if you tuned in last week, there has been a slight rebrand. So it is now the Rochelle Christian Podcast, formerly the Emotional Mastery Podcast. So today we're going to talk about that planet that brings us all back to our 8-year-old selves, Uranus. My son likes to correct me when I say Uranus, and he goes, "No, Mom, it's your anus." So that planet is the one we're going to talk about today. So Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, the co-ruler along with Saturn. Uranus was found in 1781 at a time of massive upheaval and revolution in history. The mythology of Uranus is really interesting, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But along with being the co-ruler of Aquarius, it rules the 11th house. So this has a lot to do with groups. It has a lot to do with being the humanitarian. It is, fun fact, the coldest planet in the solar system, and it rains diamonds, apparently, on Uranus, which is really fascinating. But again, Uranus holds the archetype, holds the keywords of rebellion, revolution, freedom, chaos, anxiety, the humanitarian. All of these sort of themes are wrapped up within this planet. And in the body, Aquarius rules the circulatory system, and Uranus is sort of the electrical system within the body. So basically, it's our nervous system, which is why when you have Uranus transits, you can feel super anxious. A lot of anxiety might come up. And I love working with the transits for this reason, because I'm an incredibly emotional person regardless. And I know there's all those memes out there about just blame the planets, but sometimes it just makes so much sense. And I really work to use it in reflection rather than in preparation. Or if I'm feeling super anxious in the moment, I might look to see what's going on, but it's usually in reflection and journaling and being able to see the bigger picture afterwards. Again, always in reflection for me is how I really notice them. And I tend to sort of feel transits a little bit after they happen. It could just be that little integration period or whatever, where it just takes me a minute for it to really settle in, for me to come to an awareness of what's happening. But working with the transits is super, super helpful when it comes to self-awareness, when it comes to patterns, because that is what astrology is. Astrology is working with the patterns throughout history. It's looking back at the planets, looking back at the patterns, looking back at the ages, the times, and everything that has happened to be able to not predict the future, because I don't think anything can predict the future. We all have our own free will, and we all have the ability to choose what path and what timeline we're going to be moving down. But they hold the energy of what we might expect. Therefore, we can maybe brace ourselves or have an idea or see where we've learned lessons, see what's coming up, and see how we can navigate it with kindness, with empathy, with compassion, with grace for ourselves. So Uranus has been in Taurus. It takes about 84 years for Uranus to circle the zodiac. And in human design, we talk about we are Uranian beings, which just means that in 1781, when Uranus was discovered, we also went from this 7-centered being, this traditional chakra system that we are very familiar with, into this 9-centered being, where the solar plexus split between the spleen and the solar plexus, and the heart split between the G center and the ego. Also was the same time that we discovered Uranus. So again, we went to this Uranian beings where our average lifespan was about 84 years. So our Uranus return is about 42 years old. So that's a really impactful season of our astrology, of our life cycle. And so it sits in each sign for about 7 years. It has been in Taurus since May 15. I was about to say 1986 because that was the year I was born, but it's been in Taurus since May 15, 2018. And it entered Taurus literally 2 minutes before my birth time. So I know you're probably tired of me saying it, but this, I feel like this transit was like made for me. Kidding, but also it's been wild as a Taurus midheaven, Taurus Mercury, and Taurus Sun over here. It has been so awakening, which is the keyword for Uranus, right? Uranus is the awakener. Uranus is rebellion. Uranus is freedom. Uranus is a humanitarian. And with all of that, we cannot be free if we are not authentic. We cannot be free if we are not awake to our patterns. We cannot be free. It's like that quote, and I heard it so many times over the last few days from like different sources, but it's something along the lines of the only way to break free of your prison is to understand that you are in prison, right? To understand that one is in a prison. And so often we don't realize that we are in a self-induced prison of the mind, right? Which is the beautiful piece of human design to move us out of the mind and into the body. But we so often don't realize that we have done that to ourselves. And so Uranus is here to shake things up, to wake us up to this truth that is held within the energy. And with it being in Taurus, Taurus is a earth sign, right? It is a fixed earth sign. So it really grounds its feet in. Taurus does not like change. Uranus does not like to be in Taurus. Like these two do not work when we think about it, right? The lesson that I feel like over the last 7 years with Uranus and Taurus has been to find your grounding, to find that place inside, to find your authenticity, to awaken to the truths that are keeping you stuck, especially when we look around at the food systems, right? Relationships, of course, because Venus rules Taurus. So this is all about self-worth. It is about our relationships. And so it's really waking us up. Like sometimes the habits that we have put in place do not serve us, right? So Taurus can become very fixed in its routine, in the way that it works. Taurus loves comfort. And so it's really creating an awareness around like what is working for us and what is not working for us when it comes to this area of our life. So of course, if you're listening, if you have your astrology chart, you're listening along, identifying where Taurus is in your chart. And specifically, it's around 24 degrees of Taurus. I believe I'd have to double check, but I think it is about 24 degrees of Taurus right now. It was 23 degrees of Taurus during the full moon. It may have moved a degree. It may still be at 23 degrees. So it's hovering around that degree. Now, in human design, this is the gate 23, the gate of simplicity. And Uranus is a little chaotic, right? So we're coming into this gate that desires to be simple. I have, again, my sun is in gate 23. So this is a huge core piece of my purpose. It's a core piece of who I am. I am here to take complex ideas, complex systems, sit with them because Taurus is slow, right? It's not like the breakthrough. The opposite is gate 43. It's not like a huge breakthrough hit and all of a sudden everything's different. Taurus is slow moving. So it's sitting with this and being able to distill it into a simple explanation, a simple concept. And so I notice in myself when I am making things overly complex, I'm not sitting with it long enough. I haven't fully integrated the information. I haven't fully processed the information. And this isn't only a verbal thing, like it does sit in the throat, but it is also beyond that. This is when I look around my room and it's a mess, there's complexity, right? We want things to be simple in as many areas as we can with this gate 23. Now, again, Uranus is chaos. So it's coming into this gate and shaking it up to awaken us to the truth of where are we making things super complicated? Where can we come back to those simple ideas? Where can we ground ourselves in our truth, which has been the whole lesson here, and move from that space? So we're going to talk about the mythology of Uranus because it's interesting. So Uranus was the god of the sky and heavens, right? And Maya, Gaia, Mother Earth, created and married Uranus, and he would come apparently and hug the earth at night and procreate, made a whole bunch of babies, like in the teens, if not more, with Gaia. But the children, like the Titans, the Cyclops, there's a there's another group of them, and I can't remember what they're called. These are all children of Uranus, but they were powerful. So he decided that he was going to banish them somewhere deep inside the earth. And with all of her children banished and buried, Gaia was super upset, as most mothers would be. So she asked her son, Saturn, to castrate Uranus so that she could have her children back. And he did. And it is said that when he castrated him, his genitalia fell into the ocean. And this is what birthed Aphrodite, the goddess of love, right? The ruler of Taurus. So there is that connection when it comes to Uranus being in Taurus. And after this, it's said that Uranus went back into the heavens, into the skies, and just didn't ever bother Gaia after that. So this is the mythology behind it. I always find mythology to be so fascinating. Of course, all the planets are related, interrelated in some way, in some form. But I'm also, this will be a whole other podcast episode because I haven't sat with the information long enough to really be confident speaking about it. But I'm studying the goddess asteroids, and they all, or the asteroid goddess book, but the goddess asteroids, and they all come from Venus. Venus is that feminine archetype of the zodiac. Venus and the moon are are the most feminine of the zodiac. They hold a lot of lessons when it comes to that feminine energy. And these four goddesses are all branches of Venus. So that'll be for a whole other episode. But I bring that in because Venus is said to have come again from the semen of Uranus after he was castrated. And Venus rules Taurus. So that sort of ties in this Taurus energy when it comes to Uranus, and possibly why Uranus doesn't like to be in Taurus, but always has so many lessons, right? Again, those key phrases of Uranus: sudden change. Taurus doesn't like sudden change, right? Freedom, breakthroughs, shocks, technology, revolution. Now, later this year, Uranus is going to dip into Gemini for a little bit, and then it's going to come back into Taurus in a retrograde. But once it moves into Gemini, right, like being another air sign, this is going to feel a little bit more comfortable for Uranus. However, think about it, right? Uranus rules technology. Gemini is more the social media aspect of that, right? It is curiosity. It is playfulness. It is social media. It is communication. It is the mind. So this could bring a lot of anxiety, right? It could bring some unpredictability to areas of social media. Like, how are we going to navigate that, right? So really paying attention to now what Jupiter is bringing up in the area of Gemini, right? And how that is impacting your chart. And then knowing that Uranus is going to be moving in there for 7 years. And so that, if you have your sun there, if you have your rising there, if you have your moon there, it is really going to impact you, and understanding how that's going to impact you. Again, Uranus holds a lot of unpredictability. If there's one thing that is guaranteed when it comes to this energy, we don't really know what to expect, right? And specifically with Uranus in Taurus, there are a lot of natural disasters, could be potentially, right? I mean, we're at the back end of it. And I think that it's fair to say that there's been a lot of shake up in the environment, in the weather patterns, right? A lot of things like that. I mean, even with, Uranus ruling the air, ever since Uranus went direct, I think it was like January 28th or January 30th, it might have been. I just read a thing, something like 48 aircraft incidents, right? And so Uranus is still in that shadow phase afterwards, because the shadow phase is like sort of equal to the time that it is in a retrograde. But for me personally, when I look at this, I mean, Uranus went into retrograde, I believe it was September 1st, and it just stationed direct January 30th. So we're going to be in the shadow phase on the back end of it for a while. But everything has shifted for me since then. I've woken up to so much there, and I wouldn't even say woken up to it. I've just can't fit into a box that isn't made for me anymore. And this has been a journey. And for me, I think we're all seeking freedom, right? I think that's one of so many of our keywords is freedom. And it has been one of my keywords as I've navigated and gotten clarity on what I want. And as I've been navigating the Venus sequence, the SQ, your spiritual quotient, is basically your heart. It's the space of unconditional love in your system. And for me, that's found in gate 55. And the gift and city of gate 55 is freedom. And so it really sort of solidified this for me. But that was a tangent that I don't quite remember where I was going. But freedom. Yeah. So it was really pushing me to pull myself out of the system that I was finding myself in, right? And I think that is what has been a huge lesson with Pluto navigating Capricorn and now being in Aquarius. There's been a lot of discomfort in the system. A lot has been coming up. And now that it's in Aquarius, we're sort of breaking that mold and starting something new. And that is a huge lesson of that energy, which of course Uranus is the ruler. So we're being impacted in that way as well. Really understanding in your own chart when Uranus is moving over natal transit, an inner planet, your rising, or really any planet, right? Because Uranus is an outer planet. So it's more generational, right? Within that 7 years, is everybody within that 7 year span is going to have Uranus in Taurus or Uranus in Sagittarius or Capricorn or whatever the sign is. When it comes to like an inner planet or a transit that'll impact you, again, it's really hard to predict because it is Uranus, but we can definitely expect some sort of anxiety, right? Because we're awakening to the truth of what's hidden, maybe what we haven't been noticing. Aquarius is very much the rebel because it's been in the system, it's been embedded in the system enough to know what isn't working. And so Uranus is sort of, again, it pulls itself out of that. It is forward movement, it is progress, it is forward thinking, right? And so whatever transit you're having, applying these sort of keywords to that, right? Asking specifically where Uranus, if you're looking for Uranus in your own chart, we can navigate to that, to your natal chart. This is like, where am I different, right? Where do I feel different? How am I different? Another question you could ask yourself, like, where in my life am I craving freedom? So wherever Uranus is in your chart, there's going to be a pull to freedom. I personally have it in Sagittarius. It is also next to my Saturn, which is sort of conflicting. It's not really conflicting energy because they're both rulers of Aquarius, but whereas Uranus wants complete freedom and it wants awakening and it's again forward movement, forward thinking, Saturn is structure and boundaries, and it's bringing in the past to create wisdom, right? It's that embodied wisdom through time with Saturn that can then allow us to move forward, right? Once we've sort of broken through the past and once we've understood the past, once we've transmuted our karma and let go of that, then we can really embody that Uranus energy, that Aquarian energy. So it's not really opposite energy. It just like sort of when you think about them together, like sometimes it does feel a little bit differently. Again, we might feel a lot of excitement. We might feel instability, right? We might feel like we need to break through this. Like we might feel this really intense nervous system activation and energy as it's like directly over any sort of transit that you might have in your chart, right? Because it is a slow moving planet. So you'll be feeling it for a while. And of course, with retrogrades, it'll be going back and forth over it. It is really a time. It's always a time to do nervous system work. But when you have a Uranus transit, it's really, really an extra time to really come in, right? And ground yourself and find that place inside that you can be sure of, that will keep you grounded, that will keep you stable and relax, right? Find a way to calm yourself and be able to move through these transits. Now, I'm going to read sort of Uranus transiting through the houses and how that might impact you. So as I go through each house, think about what sign you have there if Uranus is moving through it. I'm going to do the houses and then I'm going to do the sides. So just grab your chart. If you don't have your chart, you can get it online, astro.com. You can go to my website, rochellecristan.com, and you could get your human design chart. There's also an option, drop-down option in there for you to get your astrology chart. You can grab it there. So have that in front of you. Know what house Uranus is in and what sign Uranus is in. And as I'm going through this, we can even think about where it is transiting. So find where Taurus is in your chart, right? For me, that's my 10th house. Having an idea of where these are and how it could be impacting you is really helpful. So the first house with Uranus, this is personal reinvention, right? This is the self, the ego. This is changes in appearance, right? Identity shifts, desire for more freedom in your life, right? That second house, financial upheavals, new sources of income, changing values, detachment from materialism. This is shedding and awakening to yourself so that you can really embody that self-worth that is needed, that confidence that is needed to go forth and find and make your own resources. Now, of course, we don't have to. A lot of people go out there and create resources and don't necessarily have all the confidence, but this is finding that safety and security and because Taurus rules the second house. So finding that within yourself as you're navigating this. So the third house, unconventional learning, unexpected travel. This is sudden shifts in your thinking and communication breakthroughs. The fourth house, family changes, moving unexpectedly, redefining home life, generational healing. This is huge for Uranus transiting the fourth house. Fifth house, unpredictable love life, because remember, the fifth house is play, fun, children, dating, romance, like all that fun stuff. Changes in creative expression, desire for risk taking, unique self expression. The sixth house, shifts in work. Sixth house is health and daily routines and work. Health routines, alternative medicine, or wellness discoveries and sudden lifestyle changes. Even like when you think about the sixth house in Uranus, this could also be things like Healy. I've talked about it here before, but Healy is designed to impact your frequency, your health. It's raising your frequency. So we're bringing this innovative technology into our everyday health and daily routines. Seventh house, unexpected relationship shifts, meeting eccentric people, breakups, or unconventional partnerships. Now, I have Aquarius in the seventh house, and so I am very attracted to unconventional relationships. I feel very restricted if there are any sort of rules or boundaries imposed on me, which is kind of funny and also very Aquarian, where I have been in relationships in the past where I had zero freedom. I could not speak my truth. I felt very unsafe. And so just like Aquarius sometimes has to be so deep in it to know how to break free and make a change. That's sort of how I feel in my relationships at this point in my life. If I feel restricted, if I feel like there's any sort of boundaries put on me, I can't be in it. That doesn't feel good for me. So that's Uranus in the seventh house, Aquarius energy. Eighth house, deep psychological breakthroughs. So this is changes in shared finances, spiritual awakenings, sexual liberation, because the eighth house is all the taboo, the occult, drug, sex, rock and roll, all the fun things. Ninth house, sudden interest in new philosophies, unexpected travel, changes in belief system, or higher educational shifts. The 10th house, career, which is what I'm experiencing, career upheavals, feeling called to a new path, public image changes, and breaking free from traditional roles. Because remember, the 10th house is naturally ruled by Capricorn, but of course, it really depends on what sign you have in those. And we're going to be getting into those in just a minute. So the 11th house, new friendships, radical shifts in social circles, joining unexpected communities, and embracing technology. So Uranus is home in the 11th house because the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. 12th house, spiritual awakenings, psychic downloads, releasing subconscious fears, deep solitude leading to enlightenment. So these are sort of all of the houses and how it might be impacting you. Now, you want to add the second layer of the signs that we're about to go through here, right? Especially if this is your sun, moon, or rising sign. So Aries, right? We are breaking free from limitations, unexpected personal breakthroughs. Now with Taurus, identity shifts, financial liberation, rethinking stability, it's been a huge one. Gemini, which is what we're about to go into when Uranus moves into Gemini. Radical shifts in mindset, unexpected networking opportunities, because Gemini is very social. It's an air sign. It's social. It's of the mind. It's communication. Cancer, changes in home, family, emotional security. Leo, unconventional self-expression, new creative ventures. Virgo, workplace revolutions, sudden health awakenings. Libra, relationship shakeups, reevaluating partnerships. Scorpio, transformation of deep fears, intense awakening. Remember, Scorpio is also the healer, the alchemist. Sagittarius, sudden urges for adventure, shifts in belief system. I have Uranus in Sagittarius, and this has been a theme. Uranus in Capricorn, career reinvention, letting go of rigid expectations. In Aquarius, new social circles, leading revolutions in tech and innovation. And then finally, Pisces, spiritual breakthroughs, increased intuition, and psychic shifts. So identifying where this is for you, again, and asking where you're being called towards freedom, what feels good, what truth you're awakening to, what truth is Uranus trying to bring to you. How can you navigate this, right? Like what areas in your life are you feeling the call to more freedom, right? And is Uranus in there? Again, we're identifying where Uranus is in our chart. It's all about change. It's all about being a catalyst for change, awakening to the truth within us, being really, really mindful as we navigate through this. I mean, it's so important to always be mindful, but especially when you're noticing that you have a Uranus transit happening specifically on your sun, moon, and rising, or, even Venus and Mars, right? Any planet really, but if we're specifically focusing on those, really being able to ground into yourself, having a practice to regulate your nervous system, because Uranus rules the electrical impulses in your nervous system. And it can really be easy to like get off balanced in there. And embrace it with an open mind. Come to it with curiosity and an open mind. Maybe don't burn it all down like I did, right? But of course, I'm a 6'3" in human design. That's part of the journey, part of the process. Trusting, I think this is really asking us for a lot of trust and blind faith almost, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? We're just kind of pulled into it and we're being asked to shift. I've been navigating this since 2018. And when I look back, the one constant for me has been I discovered that this is what I wanted to do between the podcast, coaching, that has held my fire. That is what I've been absorbed in, what I've been learning, what I've been teaching, sessions, meeting people, engaging all around that. But the rest of the, I'm going to say bullshit that I filled in the background because I thought that's what I was supposed to do has really just fallen away lately, especially with it being right over my son. It's almost like I can't hide it anymore. So, and there was a period where it was right as it went direct. I was so anxious in my system. I really had to come back to these practices of just like breathing, grounding, tapping, doing all these like things that keep me in my body. And that looks very different for all of us, right? I have a podcast episode coming out in March, and it really talks about the different ways that we can all be grounded in our body because it looks different for everybody, right? Yeah, it just looks different for everybody. So finding that tool for you that brings you into your system, that brings you into your body is really, really going to be helpful for this period of time, wherever this is activating for you. So thank you so much for listening. If this resonated, let me know. Find me on Instagram at Rochelle.Christiane. That's ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. You can join the Holistic Human Design Academy, which is 8 modules to really understanding all this information: human design, astrology, gene keys, energetics, your body. Putting it all together, you will be put into a beautiful Instagram community where I do monthly Q&As. I'll go in there and do lives once a week. I'll be back to it once I'm done with my 28-day challenge for my personal Instagram, because that's where I'm kind of going live every single day now. But at the end of that, the focus will be back on Holistic Human Design Academy and one-on-one sessions. I offer 3 and 6 month deep dives into your chart. This is holistic human design. So we do look at your health, your body, the connection with your body, along with human design to get you aligned and in your system. So all the ways that you can work with me are down below. I thank you so much for being here. I thank you so much for listening. And until next time.